Welcome to Life in Real Time with Lucia, the podcast where we capture the essence of raw, unfiltered conversations and where we will dive deep into the journey of life. No topic is off limits here, and things can get real, really real. This is your space for open, honest, and sometimes messy discussions about everything that life throws our way. The good, the bad, and the downright chaotic. Some episodes will be unscripted, where anything can happen, and others will be carefully crafted to explore thought-provoking themes. A fair warning, though, that this is rated adult, and yes, that means that the language might get a little colorful at times, but hey, that's life in real time, right? So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and join me on this unpredictable adventure through life's ups and downs, and everything in between. Let's keep it raw, keep it real, and above all, let's keep it honest. I'm Lucia, and this is Life in Real Time. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Life in Real Time with Lucia. Before we begin, just a friendly reminder that this episode reflects my personal experiences, beliefs, and reflections. It is not intended to shame, pressure, or judge anyone for how they choose to live, give, or engage with the world. I'm not an expert in animal welfare or global advocacy. I'm simply a human sharing from the heart. This conversation may touch on emotional topics involving animals, compassion fatigue, and responsibility. Please listen at your own pace and take breaks if needed. My intention here is awareness, not overwhelm, reflection, not guilt, and connection, not division. I want to start with something I will return to at the end of this episode. It's a simple anchor for this conversation, and it goes something like this. I am present. I am aware. I choose compassion. I recognize the sacredness of life, big or small, human or animal. My energy matters. My attention matters. My choices matter. With every act of care, I speak for the voiceless. Lately, I've been thinking deeply about that phrase, speaking for the voiceless. We often hear it. It sounds powerful, and it sounds noble. But I ask myself, what does that actually look like in real life? Not in the headlines, not in outrage, not in performative posts, but in quiet, everyday choices. As I sat with that question, I realized that this idea didn't just appear this year. It had already been unfolding through the work that I do, the people I serve, and the causes that have stayed close to my heart. One particular moment brought that clarity home for me. Last month in December, when I held a raffle at my spa to support a cat colony in the Azores. It wasn't a big campaign. It wasn't flashy. It was a simple, intentional choice to use my business as a way to help something beyond myself. These cats didn't ask to be abandoned. They didn't choose their circumstances. They don't have a voice in where they get to live, how they're treated, or whether they survive. And as I watched you participate in this raffle, something shifted in me. I realized that if I have a platform, even though it's a very small one, then I have a responsibility, not to fix everything, but to care where I can. That realization led me to a deeper question. Who do we choose to care about, and why? When we talk about animals and compassion, there's often a hierarchy. The big ones, the rare ones, the ones we find impressive or beautiful. And then there are the ones people dismiss, the strays, the small ones, the ones labeled as nuisances. I can't say that word, I have trouble with it. The ones labeled as problems and the ones labeled as inconveniences. But compassion isn't meant to be selective. Animals deserve love and protection regardless of their size. Small animals, stray animals, the ones people overlook, the ones people refuse to make room for. And I want to say this clearly, even if it's uncomfortable. When animals are neglected or mistreated, it has very little to do with the animal and everything to do with the human. A lack of empathy, a lack of regulation, a lack of love within themselves. People who dismiss animals frequently dismiss vulnerability altogether. They struggle with softness. They struggle with responsibility. They struggle with seeing life as sacred unless it serves them. And guess what? Animals feel this. Which brings us to something we don't talk about enough. Energy. That reflection doesn't stop with animals. It naturally extends to people. Animals are deeply sensitive beings. They read tone, they feel tension, they respond to presence. Our energy affects them far more than our words ever could. An unregulated human creates fear. A calm human creates safety. A dismissive human creates uncertainty. And this doesn't stop with animals. When I say voiceless, I'm not just referring to animals. I also mean exhausted people, caregivers, burnt out helpers, people carrying grief quietly, people suffering with mental illness, those who have learned to stay small because their needs were dismissed. The same lack of empathy that harms animals shows up in how humans treat one another. This is where my work intersects. Healing isn't just physical. It's emotional. It's nervous system based, and it's deeply relational. But holding space like this for animals and people comes at a cost. When you are sensitive, empathic, and attuned, you feel everything. You feel suffering in animals. You feel exhaustion in people. You feel the weight of a world that moves too fast and cares too little. And over time, this turns into compassion fatigue. Not because you're weak, but because you are human. We were never meant to witness constant suffering without rest, grounding, and support. There is a difference between compassion and self-abandonment. You are allowed to care deeply without destroying yourself. You are allowed to set boundaries without becoming cold. Learning this was very essential for me, and it shaped how I choose to engage moving forward. For those of you who know me, you will know that I do become very involved with the world events. And you may have noticed that lately I have, or you haven't been seeing those posts, I have made a personal decision to step back from constant commentary or posting on world events. Not because I don't care, but because being constantly activated was harming my nervous system. I noticed that reacting to everything was leaving me depleted, less present, less grounded, and less effective. There is power in intentional engagement. We don't need to comment on everything to stand for something. Protecting our peace allows us to show up with integrity, and that realization brought me back to the bigger picture. Healing doesn't happen in isolation. When we regulate ourselves, we create safer spaces for others. When we choose compassion, we model it. Using my spa, my podcast, and my voice as tools for good feels aligned to me and not performative. This isn't about branding, it's about values. And those values guide how I want to close this conversation. I have a few questions for you, and before I share these questions, I want to say this clearly. These are not meant to shape or accuse. They're meant to wake us up. Growth doesn't come from comfort alone. It comes from awareness. I have 7 questions. Question number 1. When I see animals being neglected, abandoned, or harmed, what is my first internal response? Empathy, discomfort, indifference, or the urge to look away? Question number 2. Have I ever dismissed an animal as just an animal, too many, or not my responsibility? What was happening in my own life or emotional state at that time? Question number 3. Do I notice a difference in how animals respond to me when I am calm and present versus stressed, rushed, or emotionally closed? Question number 4. In what ways might my own unhealed pain, stress, or disconnection affect how I treat vulnerable beings, including animals? Question 5. Have I ever confused being emotionally numb with being strong, or being detached with having boundaries? Question 6. Where in my life am I avoiding softness, and how might that avoidance show up in how I relate to animals, people, or myself? And last question. What would change if I saw vulnerability in animals and in myself, not as an inconvenience, but as something sacred and deserving of care? And once again, I am going to repeat the anchor statement that I voiced at the beginning of this podcast. I am present. I am aware. I choose compassion. I recognize the sacredness of life, big or small, human or animal. My energy matters. My attention matters. My choices matter. With every act of care, I speak for the voiceless. Thank you for listening.